Greetings. It's my great pleasure to join the Thai Global 22 conference in Hyderabad, and even a greater pleasure to have a fireside chat with our great guest, Dr. Jennifer Holmgren. Just a word about myself. I'm Jaleh Daoud, and I'm partner at Aurora Equity and chairman of the Food and AgTech at the Band of Angels. I've been, my entire career, I have been committed to sustainability when it was not even a well understood concept or even fashionable. So I'm delighted that today, nowadays, sustainability is quite on top of everybody's mind, and pioneers like Jennifer, Dr. Holmgren, are, are taking us to a place where the future seems to be a bit more sustainable. So with that, let me introduce our guest. Dr. Jennifer Holmgren is CEO of LanzaTech. She joined the company in 2010, and amazingly, she turned the place around from a fledgling little company into a global leader. And a little factoid, not a factoid, actually a good fact, is that she is one of the very few survivors of the biofuel mania of the era when she took over LanzaTech as a biofuel company. So a little bit about her background. She earned her PhD at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and got her MBA at University of Chicago, Booth School of Business. She and LanzaTech are recipient of so many awards that I'm not going to go through that because I don't want to take the time from the good part. I would only mention that LanzaTech was the only US company that was a finalist among the Earthshot Prize, which is sponsored by Prince William of UK. And the drum rolls, please, right now. She is also the recipient of 2022 Thai Sustainability Entrepreneur Award of the Year. She will be receiving the award on behalf of LanzaTech a little bit later during this conference. So biggest, hugest congratulations, Jennifer. And
Thank
with that,
you.
let's go into the good part. So as I understand it, LanzaTech is a synthetic biology platform where you create microbial system, mostly bacteria, that would eat up HGS, the emissions from factories and many other sorts of waste products, and turns it into useful industrial products. Tell us a little bit about LanzaTech, what it does, and how it does it. A little bit more than what I just gave the headline.
Certainly. And thank you for the opportunity to share our story because I'm really excited about what we're doing and I'm really excited about um, being part of the Thai platform. So, and all of the entrepreneurs there, and especially you, Jala, who's supported us for so many years. Um, but I'll answer the question. First of all, we are a synthetic biology platform, and the what we do is we have a bacteria that eats hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide, and it converts that to ethanol. It's fermentation, it's a microbrewery, except it doesn't use sugar and it doesn't use yeast. Now, what
Oh,
I think is one of the yeah, and one of the most important elements is that it is a continuous process. One of the biggest distinction with sugar eating microbes, where the chemistry happens in a vat over a period of months, is that our chemistry happens in seconds. And so we're able to run a continuous process. Gases in, microbes eat, ethanol out. And so that is the basis of our platform, and it is what we have commercialized. It is a marriage of biology and engineering. because to efficiently get these insoluble gases to the microbe is actually a very difficult engineering problem. So by putting these two together, we have commercialized the ethanol technology. The synthetic platform starts to shine when we start to genetically modify the organism. This ethanol organism was optimized through directed evolution, but we have now learned to genetically modify this organism to make other chemicals like acetone, isopropanol, octanol, ethylene. So it's really quite a journey from being able to produce ethanol to being able to produce every other commodity chemical used in the world today.
Oh, that's amazing. So again, from what I gather, news media, yourself, and colleagues who work directly with you, is that you have made amazing progress in the last 10, 12 years. You are now commercially at scale in some countries and some places. Although you're based in Chicago, I have to indicate that you're headquartered in Chicago, so you are a US company. Um, so you are at scale with commercial processing and all of that. And now I hear and I see and I can purchase consumer facing products you're in. Your products are
Yep.
in. And some of these companies are really global brands like Lululemon and
Yep.
Nike and, and Virgin Atlantic and such. So, can you give us examples of some of the companies that they're using your products to make consumer facing products? And what are those products? Tell us a little bit the story.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the way we think about our platform is that ethanol is only an intermediate. Ethanol is a carrier of carbon and energy of these distributed waste resources, from these carbon monoxide in a steel mill to synthesis gas from municipal solid waste. So we make ethanol, and then we take that ethanol and we convert it to foam, EVA with Borealis for on shoes. We've taken and made PET, polyester, for Zara, and they sold dresses over the holidays, and then they had a
By the
spring
way, it's
collection.
my favorite shop. Zara
Is
is my
that
favorite.
right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of cool. They have an innovation line. And so they're trying to really help startup companies get their products to market. And, so we made polyester for them, and they made dresses. We've also had Lululemon make shorts, running shorts. We've worked with Unilever because we've also made surfactants that they can use for detergent. So really, we're just trying to show that everything that you normally buy that can be made from fresh fossil resources can instead be made with recycled carbon that and keeps fossil carbon in the ground where it belongs.
Yeah. So, are these companies? So, I'm so glad that you are in some of the brands that are my favorite, like Zara. For casual clothes, I just go to Zara. Uh, so, these companies, obviously, public companies, are interested in ESG because that helps their stock price quite a bit.
Right.
Do you think that these companies are mostly interested to be ESG compliant and reap the benefits of that? Or is it because there is actually pressure from consumers demanding that they become more sustainable?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is it really depends on the company. But both of the factors that you've mentioned are important. Being ESG compliant has become very important for brands. But I saw a Stern report a couple of years ago that actually highlighted the number of consumers that are becoming eco-aware. Okay.
Mm.
And so they catalog them into different categories. A consumer that is eco-aware, that knows to look at a label and ask, where is my material coming from? but there are also consumers who are willing to pay a little bit more for an eco-friendly product. And
Right.
if you combine those two categories, it was almost 60% of all consumers were looking for a brand that actually could reduce some type of their environmental footprint. And that combination is quite important, right? Because you've got pressure from shareholders to be eco aware. And now you've got consumers that are eco aware. And so the two are coming at a time. And so brands are really trying to do something and trying to do it fast. You really see the urgency.
So can they sell these products at a premium so their margin is better if you use these eco-friendly ingredients?
Yeah, that I think only in very small collections are they charging premiums. Generally, first of all, the brands are paying more. You know, our polyester is not as at the same price as fossil-derived polyester, where is made from just natural gas. Um, so they're actually paying more, and generally they are not charging more for the consumer. So they're internalizing those costs. Um, you know, they're trying to create enough of a market that they can charge more, but this is at the beginning of that journey. So they're just using it to position themselves generally.
When you make partnerships like these, which is basically uh, is your market, you're expanding your market with these chemicals. You're now a synthetic biology and a chemical company. So to me, I'm not in this kind of business, but to me, it looks like when you make a partnership like this, it's science, a strategy behind it, scientific strategy building, and it's also an art because you have to figure out what is a good partnership, who is a good partner. Tell us a little bit about your approach. How do you make sure that you got the right partner that is going to be an enduring partnership?
Yeah, so that's a that's a really good question. What we find, because we're so early in the journey, is that often the way we find our partners is that we're aligned on a strategy of what we're trying to accomplish, right? So you already know that you are working with somebody who's motivated to do what you want to do. Um, and you know, we work with a lot of very large companies, both brands as well as our investors and our partners. I mean, I'm here because ArcelorMittal is inaugurating their plant at a steel mill here in Ghent using our technology. You know, that's the
Hmm.
largest steel company in the West, right? So
ArcelorMittal.
essentially, yeah. So what that means is that you're working with very large companies. And so you have to make sure that you are aligned in objectives. What are you trying to accomplish? And you want to make sure that the companies you're working with are doing it because they need to and want to. If they're
Yeah,
just doing it because it's a greenwashing exercise and they want people to think they're doing something, they'll never do it. They'll never do it with the same gusto or intensity that you need for it to happen. And so you end up
yeah.
with a partner who is kind of going through the motions. And you just really want to make sure you're always aligned on objectives and that they really, really mean it. They really want to work with you.
Hmm. That's great. So as we talked about, you're a synthetic biology company, you're a chemical company, you have a wide range of partners. So your company is becoming more and more sophisticated in its, operation and such. So on the microbial side, you're creating microbes can chew up all kinds of different industrial outputs, waste, whether it's municipal waste or steel mill gases that come out. And then you have different products that you mentioned that goes in different consumer products. So it's pretty complex. So you need to constantly update your system. And on the other hand, your customers, your partners, have to adjust to market changes, market demands. So is it fair to say that your product is a software that can be upgraded or swapped out, and depending on the needs of your partner, you can very quickly, like I upgrade my iOS on my iPhone, so to speak.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that fair
yeah.
to say?
Yeah, and I love that analogy because when we think about building a plant that say makes ethanol from a gas at a steel mill, that's $100 million piece of equipment that's being installed. And if you use the bacteria that makes ethanol in that equipment, you'll make ethanol. But of course, it will be the same equipment if you make acetone or isopropanol or other molecules. And so you're absolutely right. Depending on market conditions or demand, the customer that's built our plant, let's call them the customer, can produce acetone in that plant or can produce isopropanol by changing the microbe. So the microbe is the software, as you say, and the actual refining unit, the production facility is the hardware. So I feel like that is a perfect analogy and it's what we're going for. And I imagine that there will be a world where commodities, what we call commodities today, where the industry chases a commodity and has to build capacity, that whole concept goes away because you can just use your production facility as a toll manufacturing facility and make whatever product makes the most sense at that time. And so now you're actually decoupling from this commodity madness on the back end, creating local supply chains, using local feedstocks, right? And so
Yeah,
you kind of changing the dynamic of how we produce products today.
yeah, that's such a terrific story. I mean, you layering your software over the hardware. That speaking of hardware, I know that you have production facilities and pilot plants in many, many countries, large and small. Working with ArcelorMittal in Europe, where you are right now, in Ghent, Belgium, and you're also in China, Japan, and because we are an Indian conference, you're also in India. So I'm sure the audience would want to know what you're doing in India.
Absolutely. So first of all, the Zara polyester, the methyl ethyl glycol, the MEG, was actually made in India by Indian Glycols, by IGL. The surfactants for the detergents that Unilever used were also made by Indian Glycols. They made the ethoxylates and then the surfactants, and that's what was used by Unilever. So our ethanol has been converted in India for many of the products we're using. And then in addition, I would also say that we are just starting up a plant with Indian oil in their Panipat refinery, where we're using a refinery off gas and converting that to ethanol. So that plant should be, I mean, it's already starting up, it's already being commissioned. Um, and so now you can imagine using the waste gas in India, converting that to ethanol, and then also converting it further to the other products. And I'm also very excited because we announced a couple of projects, one with MRPL, where we're going to use gasified agri residues to make the ethanol. And the gasifier is also a local company, it's Ankur, which has built their own gasifier and commercialized it. And it's a very efficient local process. So we're going to combine local feedstock, agri residues, local gasifier, and core technology, and LanzaTech gas fermentation to make ethanol. And I have to, sorry to keep talking, but the other reason I'm excited about that, is in India, there's a lot of burning of the field stubble, which causes a lot of pollution when the farmers have to burn their stuff, the field stubble. And so if we could convert that instead of burn it, then now all of a sudden we have jobs for the farmers collecting the waste, but also we avoid the air pollution. And I really like that. I like the idea of being able to create these local supply chains in India. I'm very excited for my local partners there.
Yeah. So speaking of all these cleaning up gases or waste material, turning them into useful things, I know that you were at COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. I I hope you can tell us a little bit about what did you like that what were the big takeaways first? What did you like, and was there any disappointment that you want to share with us?
Well, I've gone to quite a few COPs, and I would tell you that this most recent one, I think people are starting to understand the urgency. And you're starting to see both governments and corporations showing up and trying to make commitments to go further and faster, right? Higher ambition is the conversation, and people really, really mean it. So I'm very optimistic about that. One of the things that I also think is becoming important is a realization that we need to do something different to really work in what we call the global south, the developing nations. And I know a lot of people talk about compensation for climate issues, right? And that is a hot topic, and that's an important topic. But I think the other important topic, which didn't get as much visibility, is financing. So if you think about, right, if you want to build a solar farm in
Show me the
California, where,
money. It's called Show
well,
Me the Money.
show me the money, but your cost of capital in California or Houston or wherever in the United States is very different than the cost of capital in Africa. And
Right,
if you think, right? So the problem is if you think about renewables versus conventional fossil, renewables have a higher capex and a lower opex, whereas fossils have a higher, I'm sorry, a lower capex and a higher opex. And so what
right,
that means is that you're incentivized to go to fossil with new installations because the cost of capital is higher, say in
right,
Africa. And
right,
so, right, and it's something people don't talk about. And I really saw that as an important conversation between banks and between IFC and developing nations and talking about bilateral agreements that would enable faster deployment of renewables by reducing the risk premium and the cost of capital in developing excuse me, nations. And so
mm,
I thought that was actually the most important takeaway, is that people are very conscious and are working on this issue, which will accelerate deployment of renewables. So those were my biggest takeaways. um, my disappointment is always the same. You know me, Charlie. I get tired of talking, even though we're talking. And it's just like, come on, let's get on with it. The urgency of the problem. I do appreciate, though, it's important for people to talk. I do appreciate that, but the urgency, turn it up a
yeah.
knob, turn it up.
Well, the talk part is because the government gets involved. What do you do when you're in government? You do two things. You talk a lot, and sometimes you sign a check.
Yeah.
Basically.
And you know
Uh,
that very well from your background.
yes, yes. So let's talk a little bit about the fact. I want to say that you are a very inspiring woman. It's a role model for me and many, many other women and men, I should say. So I want to know what inspired you to dedicate your whole career to sustainability. My my feeling is that circular economy is in your DNA. It runs in your blood, so to speak. And I even have heard that you rescue greyhound dogs.
Yeah.
So tell me about what inspired you to be who you are today.
I I don't, that's a good question actually. And it's an evolution, right? I mean, I fell in love with science. I wanted to go to the moon when I was young. You know, we grew up in the generation of the moon program, right? And um, then I realized actually it wasn't going to the moon that was interesting, but solving really big problems. And I became a scientist. So I was inspired to become a scientist. And quite frankly, all science does is solve problems. And I just happened to have landed in one that is about carbon and reducing emissions and the circular economy. And I've made it my passion and my life's work, right? To change how people view carbon. I want to change our carbon economy, and the paradigm and that is causing all these problems is because we can't see past that paradigm, our current carbon economy. So I want to change that. And greyhound rescuing is the other thing I want to do. I want to make sure we don't race greyhounds. It's
What
a
got you into
cruel,
greyhound dogs?
yeah,
What?
it's well, it's a very cruel sport. My first two greyhounds that my husband and I rescue had broken legs. 30% of greyhounds get injured racing, so um, it's not right.
No,
You
no.
know, I should add. Can I just add one little comment because I want to put and you know greyhound rescue and climate change are actually the same thing. You know, we suffer from a lack of justice and equity around these issues, right? And with, you know, the planet's going to be fine. You know, it'll spit us out and then, you know, God knows what will happen, but the planet will be fine. What won't be
Yeah.
fine is the creatures that live in it and the people that live in it. And I have to tell you that for me, I actually believe that if we solve the equity problem that
Mhm.
relates to climate change, we solve the problem. If we continue to think about it as just, you know, carbon and how we get carbon, as opposed to thinking about the impact, the fundamental impact and the empathy that we need to have for all of those that live on this planet, that's the only way we're going to solve this problem.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm passionate about global food security and making sure that there's enough food for everybody. It's a human right. It's a basic necessity. And I invest in food and ag tech companies. Can you give me some hope that Lonzatech is going to be doing some things, a technology or product that would help sustainable agriculture and food production?
You know, we already produce animal food, right? Our bacteria is 90% protein. Um, and when we ferment, the bacteria is dividing in the bioreactor. So we're making ethanol, but we're also making a lot of bacteria. We recover the
Yeah,
bacteria.
these are giant bioreactors, huge, right?
Ex- Exactly, exactly. And so now it's not a big step to then say you can use these bioreactors to make food instead of making ethanol and food. So this is a journey that we're on, right? Of being able to make everything that's carbon containing in this isolated bioreactor, not impacting land, not impacting water. And boy, I'm so glad you're working and you care so much about food security because, as you will know, that is one of the big hits that climate change will bring us.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes, and I want to go a little bit off track here instead of talking science and technology and your technical prowess. What would you tell yourself, your 25-year-old self today?
Yeah. So I always wish I hadn't sweated some of the details I sweated when I was that age. You know, I don't mean technical details. On technology, you have to get it right. But I think when you're younger, you overthink everything and you don't adapt quickly enough. You don't pivot quickly enough. And you want to get it 99% right. And if you do something wrong, it weighs on you for so long. When you get older, you realize that that's just baggage you're carrying. Let it go. Do the next thing, do the right thing. You know what I mean? Keep adjusting, keep moving, and don't waste your time on having not done something perfectly right or somebody who said something that was negative about what you were trying to do. Just keep on moving. And I would tell my younger self, just just keep on moving. Don't let anything bog you down.
Yeah, it's like this shall pass too, right? This shall pass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Learn from
I
it
want to
and
ask
move on.
you, yeah,
Yeah.
let's get on with it. I mean, it's a very, very good advice. Move on. You know, it is what it is. It's past. Move on. So, so can you tell us something off balance sheet, so to speak? Something that is not on your LinkedIn or professional colleagues and friends know about you. What is what is something I should know about you that I don't know?
Let's see. I'm a really good pinball player. I met my husband playing well, he taught me how to play pinball. So we spent a lot of time playing pinball. So he can still beat me, but I'm pretty good too.
That's wonderful. So, one last question, and that is you're going to be public soon, de-SPACing right now. Do you think the uh, public markets are going to price you as a biotech company or a software company?
Well, that's a great question because we're a biotech company. We are a software company because we do a tremendous amount of modeling to be able to genetically modify the organism. We're also like a chemical company, we're changing the chemical industry, and we're starting to really work with very big brands. So I hope that instead of valuing us relative to these industries that exist today, they say this company is creating a new category. It's
Yeah.
creating the future carbon economy. It's about carbon transformation, waste carbon transformation. And I would say, I want to create a new category. It's not good enough to be somebody like somebody else.
Well, I have so many more questions that I would like to ask you, but we have a limited time. I want to thank you so much that in the middle of your board meeting in Belgium, you're joining us to do this. You're very special, and we are grateful for you to have joined us. Thank you so very much, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you.